Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
And I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Wednesday, May 8th, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, David Bacon, author and journalist, focusing on labor issues on the big ag assault on ag unions in California. Then David and Rosangela, two members of the Princeton University Gaza Solidarity Encampment, currently on a hunger strike. Meanwhile, U.S. puts some arms shipment on hold as Israel rejects hostage deal and presses its assault on Rafah. Biden administration's report on whether Israel has violated humanitarian law due today is reportedly going to be delayed a couple of days. House Republicans prep a bill to sanction the ICC if it actually goes ahead and does its job. The ICC, that is, not the House Republicans. Stormy Daniels testifies to the gruesome details of her sexual encounter with Donald Trump. Trigger alert.
Watch it.
Meanwhile, Trump document case trial start date has been canceled, yet to be rescheduled by that hand-picked Trump judge. University of Madison faculty and staff stage a walkout in support of pro-Palestinian protesters. Meanwhile, student protests break out across the world. And sad news, that Utah bathroom tip line apparently has been flooded with over 10,000 false reports.
Oh, what a shame.
Oh, dear.
Poll of hundreds of world's top climate scientists expect the world to blast through the internationally agreed targets. And Vermont passes a bill to charge fossil fuel companies for damage from climate change. And lastly, RFK Jr. apparently has a dead worm in his brain. All this and more on today's Majority Report.
It's a little on the nose for brainworms, like that phrase. I mean, man, we knew he had brainworms, but to this extent?
Well, let's put Emma up there. Well, there we go.
A brainworm, at least.
Yeah.
He's got one confirmed brainworm. The rest are just either like a metaphorical or still to be found.
Yeah, that and we should say that's that's a report that I mean comes from Bobby Kennedy himself. Oops, sorry. There we go. There we go. Take it for what it's worth. These things happen, yes, and don't know. He may have gotten it from traveling. I don't know if it's confirmed that that was a brainworm, but there you have it.
For somebody who's boosted, I don't have a brainworm. I don't want to draw causation there, but just maybe it's suggestive.
Oh, you're suggesting because you don't have a brainworm, there's something.
Maybe the COVID vaccine protects from that.
That's a good point.
Well, to be fair, he had the brainworm apparently like 12 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's still in there, but eventually it disintegrates. I guess I don't know.
God, I mean, maybe it comes out of the back of his head like Professor Quirrell. Anyway, keep going.
I mean, I've talked about this in the past as to why I do not eat tilapia, and I don't know if you want me to go into the details.
I would like to actually. Is it because it's a cheaper fish, or because it's?
Or you get brain.
I mean,
worms.
we were just talking about worms.
There's worms in tilapia?
Oh God. Let's change the subject.
We don't need to talk about it.
I mean, want to discuss
frankly,
people right off the top.
A lot of people say even sushi, any type of raw fish is somewhat problematic, but freshwater fish in particular. What?
I'm having some anxiety about seeing fish that I used to eat flash in my brain.
Well,
worried.
I said
Is there a worm up here?
Let's go to this. The testimony yesterday in the courtroom, and the strange thing about this is it's unclear. I mean, I guess I'm not going to pretend like I've been following the trial at every in and out, but a couple of days ago, the most damning of information came out, which is essentially that the accountants and bookkeepers took pretty explicit notes about what they were doing with this payment. This payment goes to Michael Cohen to repay him for essentially, I mean, I don't think they wrote hush money, but pretty close, right. To reimburse him for hush money. And we're going to put it as a consultant fee on the business instead of a reimbursement for hush fund money. But just so everybody knows, if you're confused by this entry, here's the note that I'm writing in contemporaneous time. It really impressive. But yesterday, Stormy Daniels was on the stand. This story, I feel like we've already heard, frankly. I think from interviews back in 2016 or 17. I'm not sure when. So none of the details, at least as far as I've read, they don't get super explicit in the reports of this. But none of the details I've read seem to be different than what we heard, like I say, years ago. But Fox and Friends and Fox and Outnumbered and all of those Fox people, they really need to figure out a way of making this criminal trial, which could theoretically put Donald Trump, at least, I mean, I think he's going to get convicted of this. He could go to jail over his violation of a gag order. I imagine he won't go to jail. There'll be an appeal if he gets convicted, but or he'll attempt to appeal. So they're doing their best to sort of obscure what this trial is about, let's say. And here is Fox's Kennedy and Harris Faulkner.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Brian. Number one, the judge sounds like a perv because he wants her to talk in lurid detail and he's asking her to speak more slowly. That's gross. Number two, let's say the transaction did take place. I'm talking about the physical one. Her being surprised that she was going to a hotel room alone with a man to have body congress is like Pete Sampras being surprised at being invited to a tennis court and you want to see his serve. And then he says, I started shaking when I saw a tennis racket. I didn't know what to do with it. It's like, bro, you've won 17 majors. And, it's this woman saying that she blacked out.
First off, I should tell you that apparently Kennedy has not watched tennis in several decades, having to use the Pete Sampras example. But let's...
Well, okay, yeah,
I don't
sure.
understand what's being said. She's saying Stormy is lying that she was nervous to go sleep with a very powerful man because she does so on camera professionally in a sort of very controlled environment.
Yeah.
Right. She's just being misogynistic about it. Right. Why does she think that she has the ability to be somebody who has one singular name as like a random Fox News commentator? Wow. You're not Zendaya. You're not Oprah, lady. I mean, you're
also
none
the
of
name
these
Kennedy's
people.
taken in this world.
Right, exactly. Exactly. All right,
let's go back.
It's this woman saying that she blacked out because she was so nervous. It's like a surgeon saying he barfed at the sight of blood. It's a little hard to believe.
It's very hard to believe because that's what she got paid to do on film. I mean, it wasn't even like she was used to doing it in the corners of darkness. She was having sex in front of many cameras.
Well lit.
Steve.
But sorry, in a professional environment. Like,
right.
What are you talking about? Go ahead. Sorry, keep going, brother.
Well, also, yeah, exactly. There were multiple people there. It was, there
was a contract.
Yeah, you signed a consent form. Like,
if there's really more of an apt metaphor than a surgeon barfing at blood, it would be a surgeon barfing at blood when that surgeon looks down and realizes, like, oh, that blood's coming from my arm, which has just been caught in some type of industrial accident, and half of my arm has been lopped off. That's what it's really more equivalent to.
Or if, like, you were a surgeon brought under cover of night to, like, a powerful guy's house to do surgery in his basement, and you're like, yeah, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the circumstance.
And there's a guard out in front, incidentally. Trump's bodyguard was blocking the door on the other side.
Yes.
Many cameras.
Well lit.
Steve.
So this has to be the low point in this complete farce of a trial. And this is the day of all days that conclusively proves what Trump's been saying all along.
Okay, so it actually does none of the sort. They're just slut shaming her and then think that that's an argument. Like, the facts of this case are not contested. Donald Trump and her had a sexual relationship back in, I guess, 2006, around that time. Then, when he was running for president, he paid her $130K through his lawyer, Michael Cohen, who then was reimbursed, and the reimbursements were put under the auspices of legal services. And that is the contention of the prosecution. So it doesn't really matter what her mindset was. Like, it doesn't really matter if she was scared or if she were enjoying it or if she thought, like, oh, maybe I'll borrow this for my next performance, like in adult films. It doesn't really matter what her mindset was. It's about the fact that it happened, and the prosecution can't, or the defense, I should say, can't contest that.
Yeah, and I think I imagine part of what the prosecution is doing here is to make it clear why Trump felt like he had to pay money to get her to be quiet. One of the things she said during the trial is that he had told her that he slept in separate beds from his wife, and apparently he audibly swore at that when she said that in the courtroom. I mean, I think what it was
that woke him up.
Well, I think the point is that they're trying to show, and I think they effectively did it just based upon his reaction probably in the courtroom, how embarrassed he felt he would be, and how much he thought it might screw up his election. Now, the irony, of course, is that it wouldn't have screwed up his election at all. I mean, you can see it here in this Fox News segment. She is, painted with a scarlet letter, but he somehow, he was barely involved in the whole thing. He's just a victim.
What is Fox News' stance on the affair that Bill Clinton had with Monica Lewinsky, for example? I mean, are they giving it the same kind of coverage that they would for that?
No, of course not. But the amazing thing is that he's not, somehow his participation in this has no resonance for them. It's really just about her.
Right. Or the fact that she said this multiple times, that Trump compared Stormy Daniels to his daughter Ivanka in the midst of their sexual relationship.
Okay, well, you didn't get the full context for that.
You're taking me out of context. Typical.
You're both smart
media.
women. That's all I meant. You're both very smart. I would love them to bring in the ABC executives to make them testify about him trying to get her onto The Apprentice, because he definitely did. Or maybe it was NBC. He definitely did. He definitely did. In a moment, we're going to be talking to David Bacon, who has got a story on this assault on one of the best unionization laws in the country, in this instance for agriculture, one that we'll talk about that, hopefully is in some ways a model for the National Labor Relations Board, but we'll talk about that in a moment. And then later, we're going to be talking to two members of the Princeton University Gaza Solidarity Encampment. And they are currently on a hunger strike to force their administration to negotiate with them, at least sit down and negotiate over the Princeton's holdings. First, a couple of words from our sponsors. This is a sponsor. I've been using this product for a long time. Well, product. I mean, I've been buying trees and bushes and houseplants from Fast Growing Trees for probably, I don't know, a decade? Is that possible? Somewhere around there. But they were one of those sponsors where I was using them. Then they came to us and wanted to advertise. I was like, absolutely. Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the U.S., has more than 10,000 different kinds of plants and over 2 million happy customers in the U.S. They have everything you could possibly want. They got fruit trees. They got palm trees. They got evergreens. They got house plants. They got shade trees. They got bloomerangs. I got a bloomerang bush that it's a lilac that blooms now and then will bloom again in like July. They also have a 30-day Alive and Thrive guarantee, and they offer free plant consultation forever. I mean, so here's the deal. You go and you get a tree at your box store or whatever it is. You put it in the back of your Subaru or your Camry or even your pickup, and by the time it gets home, all the dirt's dumped out and it's broken and whatever it is. Plus, they just don't have the selection at these places. Fast Growing Trees, their trees don't really grow faster, but they ship big trees. And in some instances, you can get fruit on them the next year. You don't need to have a lot of yard space either, because you can grow a lemon tree or an avocado tree or an olive tree or fig trees inside your home. Not to mention they got a bunch of house plants. The experts at Fast Growing Trees curate thousands of plants, so you will always find the one you want for your specific climate, for your location, and for your needs. And it doesn't matter. They have in-house experts ready to help you make the right selection with growing and care advice available 24/7. You can talk to a plant expert about your soil type. You can talk about your landscape design. You can just ask them a question like, how do I keep this plant from dying? Which is one that I generally start with. And everything else you need. You need no green thumb. This spring, they have the best deals online, up to half on select plants and other deals. Listeners to our show get an additional 15% off their first purchase when using the code MAJORITY at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com. Using the code MAJORITY at checkout, fastgrowingtrees.com. Code is MAJORITY. Offer valid for limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Now's the time to plant, folks. Also, we are now 5 days away. Is it 5 days from Mother's Day?
4.
Yeah.
Sunday, right?
Yep, Sunday.
Okay. Folks, have you gotten a present for your mom? What about your aunt? What about your grandma? What about all the moms? Friends? Aura frames are a beautiful Wi-Fi connected digital picture frame that allow you to share and display unlimited photos. This is the perfect gift. It's super easy to upload photos. You do it through an app on your phone, an Aura app. And if you're giving Aura as a gift, here is the kicker. You can personalize the frame with preloaded photos and memories. Not to mention, you can even personalize it to their Wi-Fi account. From grandmothers to new mothers to aunts, even the friends in your life, every mom loves an Aura frame. It is named the best digital frame by Wirecutter. Aura frames are guaranteed to bring joy to moms of all ages. I've given them to my sisters. going to upload pictures of my kids. I'm giving Mila the app and she can upload the pics from college, although I don't know if she wants to share those pictures. But certainly pictures of my kid, my son, I will send them. Far more innocent, those pictures. Right now, Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. Listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com/majority and get $30 off plus free shipping on their best-selling frame. That's AURA frames.com/majority. Use the code majority at checkout to save. Terms and conditions, of course, apply. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, David Bacon, author and journalist, focusing on labor issues, got a piece in The Nation magazine on Big Ag's latest blow to worker rights. We'll be right back. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report. Joining us now, David Bacon, author and journalist, focuses on labor issues, has a new piece in The Nation magazine, Big Ag's latest blow to worker rights. David, welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
David, give us some background on this AB 2183. This was a big deal, and Gavin Newsom was a little bit reluctant at the time to sign this law. But tell us what this law does.
Well, this law is called the card check law because what it does is it allows workers to join the union and to organize a union by signing what are called authorization cards. In other words, they're kind of like union membership cards. Outside of work at home. And then when a majority of the workers in a particular workplace have signed those cards, then the union can present them to the Agricultural Labor Relations Board, which is in charge of California's agricultural labor law. And if the board certifies that, in fact, a majority of workers have signed those cards, then it certifies the union as the bargaining agent for those workers, which means that the union then has the right to sit down with the grower and bargain a contract.
And this is what we, I guess it was, maybe it was in 2008. This is what card check, there was an attempt to do this on a national level. We now, in the wake of the Cemex case in the National Labor Relations Board, have a similar, it's sort of like a card check light, where it's simply a, and the theory behind this is that by just having a card check and not having to have a file for an election and then have the election 3 months later, that it doesn't give the management the opportunity to union bust and bring in their lawyers and make the union sound like it's some type of a nefarious organization. My understanding too is that this law also has a provision that if there is no contract negotiations, once the union's certified, if there is no contract negotiations or if management stalls, which we're seeing a lot now on a national level, we've had a rash of of union certifications, and Starbucks just after a year agreed to finally sit down. But this is the way they do it. They string it out so that people become disenchanted with the union because they're stonewalling the contract. Under this law, my understanding is that it automatically goes to arbitration after a certain period of time.
Yes, you're right. we need a little bit of history here. California passed the Agricultural Labor Relations Act in 1975, and Jerry Brown, who was our governor then, signed that law. And this was the first law that gave agricultural workers in the United States the right to bargaining, because ag workers were excluded from the national law when it passed through Congress in 1936. So the law set up a process for workers to organize the union and to vote and to negotiate a contract. So the first problem was that even though workers voted for the union very often, growers would refuse to negotiate a contract. So the legislature in California passed a second law in 2002, which is called mandatory mediation, which does exactly what you're saying. So that when workers choose their union, whether in this case by card check or in the old election process, and the grower won't negotiate, then the state, through the Agricultural Labor Relations Board, can essentially, first of all, call in a mediator, and then if the grower still won't agree, impose a contract on the grower, a first-time contract. Now we have a third modification to the law, which is the card check law. And I do want to point out, actually, that public employees in a number of states do have a card check process in which they can sign cards, and then the public entity that they're working for sits down and bargains with them. Public employee, labor relations are not quite the hardball sort of labor relations that you have in the private sector, and certainly not in agriculture, which is probably more hardball than anywhere. So really, this law that we have in California was passed in order to cure previous problems. And the problem with the election process is exactly what you're saying. In fact, the National Labor Relations Board has said now that, for instance, captive audience meetings, which do what you're talking about, are not really legal any longer. Companies are not supposed to do them. In California, we haven't gotten there with this farm labor law, so there's still captive audience meetings going on, and the law is intended in part to kind of take that into account.
Is there any other full-on card check law or provision to force arbitration in the event that there's a determination that the management's dragging its feet in some way, and I guess it maybe constitutes an unfair labor practice? Is there any laws like that on private in private industry in any other context around the country, or is California sort of leading the way in that?
Well, actually, New York State now has a card check law for farm workers. The process is somewhat different because in New York, there wasn't a previous law which has been modified, and which is what the process has been in California. So there is a card check process. In fact, growers are going to war sort of against the law in New York State at the same time as they're going to war against the law in California. And the National Right to Work Committee is kind of directing these national efforts against that. In the private sector, unions often try to get companies to agree to neutrality, which essentially means that the company will no longer campaign against the union and will accept the authorization cards as proof of majority status, and will then go on to negotiate. That happens, for instance, in the hotel industry quite a bit. But to get a company like the Marriott Corporation or Hilton to the point where they agree to neutrality, that's the problem. Once they agree to neutrality, the card check is kind of like a pro forma way of showing that the union has majority support.
So let's talk about this legal case, which is ostensibly dealing with a sort of a narrow instance within the law, but really is ultimately about trying to find the law, I get unconstitutional under the California, or is it just simply illegal?
Well, the effort will be to try to find the law unconstitutional, at least in California. If there was a previous effort to try to get the mandatory mediation section of the law declared unconstitutional, and that got up to the California Supreme Court, and the California Supreme Court said, no, it's perfectly constitutional, no problem. The growers, when there is a case right now in Bakersfield in which the Wonderful Corporation, which is really this giant agribusiness complex, is challenging.
We should say that's the name of the corporation, not your description of it.
That's right.
When I first read it, when I read your piece, I saw like the wonderful lawyer, and I thought that's an odd way to describe an attorney. But
well, you know, I have to admit I did play around with the word in the course of the article. But the Wonderful Corporation actually is about $4 billion in sales every year, and people are familiar with the pistachios, or with the Fiji water, for instance, which also belongs to the same company. In any case, they are challenging the certification of the United Farm Workers Union for part of the company, a nursery that grows rootstock for grapevines, which has about 600 workers. And they are challenging that in court in Bakersfield in California. If they are successful in court, then the union would lose its certification and not have the right to bargain. But because the board has said that the union did have majority support, or does have majority support there, the company is still obligated to bargain even while the case is proceeding. You know, if the case gets up to the California Supreme Court, the question will be, again, is this section of the law legal under the California Constitution or constitutional? There is some suspicion that the growers want to take the case into federal court. And the reason for that would be that the ultimate end of that case would then be the U.S. Supreme Court. And the U.S. Supreme Court has proven itself to be very unfriendly to the concerns of farm workers and farm worker unions, and for instance, knocked out a previous section of the California's labor law, which allowed union organizers and workers to talk to each other on the grower's property. It was called the access rule, and the Supreme Court ruled that this was a violation of the private property rights of growers. So if the Wonderful Corporation is able to get this case into federal court and up to the Supreme Court, that would be a big threat to the law itself.
What would be the hope of this wonderful company like how many I mean, let's be explicit about this. How many conservative judges will they find in the circuit courts, the federal courts, or district court, I guess, to start with, in California? I mean, you're really having to gamble that you're going to find somebody who's going to find in favor of the plaintiff at this point, right? I mean, because the Supreme Court won't necessarily take an appeal, but I guess maybe they're fishing for it on some level.
Well, you might think that. If the Wonderful Corporation loses in federal courts in California or at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, then they simply appeal it to the U.S. Supreme Court. So either they win at a lower level or they lose and then appeal. And in a way, you might think that their lawyers hope that they would lose at a lower level because it would get them where they want to go. The Wonderful Corporation, when they went to this small hearing in this small California city, Bakersfield, they brought with them 10 lawyers. So you can kind of see the resources that the corporation is putting into this. And Wonderful Corporation does have a lot of resources. Again, they had $4 billion in sales last year. And the company is owned by a couple, Stuart and Linda Resnick, who are sort of big political players in Los Angeles. And they're together worth about $10 billion. So they have the resources to be able to do, legally speaking, pretty much whatever they want. And that's one reason why there is a lot of suspicion that they want not just to eliminate the United Farm Workers Union as the union for the workers and don't have to bargain a contract, but that their target actually goes beyond that and is actually the invalidation of the law itself.
So regardless of where we are in the status of this case, this is something that probably we're going to be talking about. Maybe, I don't know if it gets to the Supreme Court, it may take a year or so, but it's conceivable this gets kicked up to the Supreme Court. And this is the type of case that the court would be looking for. In the event that they found that the court was to find that this was unconstitutional relative to California, would that inhibit the ability of the National Labor Relations Board to create rules, theoretically, like CEMEX, to go forward? And there's been some talk that maybe the National Labor Relations Board will ultimately make a rule to the effect of stalling on negotiating in a contract constitutes an unfair labor practice, and therefore that's when we would do the forced arbitration or mediation. What's that relationship? I mean, could the court extrapolate, the Supreme Court extrapolate from this California law into federal law?
Well, I don't think anybody really knows the answer to that question. Right. You know, the Supreme Court recently has been taking cases which have a pretty limited purview and making rulings which extend beyond the questions that the cases themselves pose before the court. But I think it's also, what you're asking is also kind of a political question to me. The reality, I think, is that California's labor law for farm workers is a very pro-worker law, and it sort of sets a standard for labor relations, first of all, for farm workers, as we see in New York State following suit. And I think there are farm worker unions in other places that are thinking of trying to get their legislatures where they have the political possibility to do that, to pass similar laws. But it also sets a standard for federal law. You know, the fact that farm workers, for instance, are able to impose a contract on a grower who will not negotiate. You know, you can imagine workers in the private sector all over the place, like Starbucks, for instance, or let's talk about Amazon. How long ago was it that those workers in Staten Island voted for the union there, right? And yet there's no negotiations even in sight with Amazon. So this law and its ability to impose a contract on growers is raising questions in the minds, certainly of Amazon workers, I'm sure, and also people who are looking at ways of changing our labor law to make it more effective. We've had decades of U.S. labor law, which essentially has favored employers, really. Mm-hmm. You know, workers who were fired for their union sympathies really have no recourse. There are no fines that can be imposed on an employer for doing that. If workers get fired and then have to go and take a job while they're unemployed, the employer gets to deduct the wages from the other employer from any kind of back wages that they owe the worker. So really there are no penalties for violating federal labor law. And the new National Labor Relations Board is trying to sort of begin to put some penalties into place and to change this decades-long kind of slide into a sort of pro-corporate labor law. And I think because we do have this law here in California, and it does have things like card check and mandatory mediation. Another thing, it has quick elections for when you do have elections. If you file a petition for an election, it has to happen while the workers are there. And in agriculture, that sometimes is a pretty brief period of time. So that's a good thing too. You know, right now, as you pointed out at the beginning of the program, the length of time between the time when workers sign those cards and ask for an election under federal labor law and the time that they actually get the election, that can go on for a very long time. And in the meantime, of course, that's when the anti-union campaign takes place. So the idea is to shorten the process, and that's what this California law does. And I think it provides an example for how we could change federal labor law.
David Bacon, we'll put a link to your piece in The Nation magazine on this assault by Big Ag on California labor law. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, We're going to be talking to two members of the Princeton University Gaza Solidarity Encampment currently on a hunger strike. We'll be right back after this. We are back. Sam Seder, Emmer Vigland on the Majority Report. Joining us now, two members of the Princeton University Gaza Solidarity Encampment, currently on hunger strike, David and Rosangela. To welcome to the program to both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Rosangela, let's start with you. What's been the situation at Princeton?
So I guess that's a really large question, but we first began our encampment in a different area from where we are right now. 2 students were arrested within the first 5 minutes of setup. We had a really great turnout, and over a few days, administration just made it clear that they were not going to listen to any of our demands or even sit down with us. So then some of our students escalated to a sit-in in Clio Hall. At that point, 13 students were arrested. And again, community just came out, became stronger and stronger after each attempt at repression by the university. And then we moved our camp. We've had quite a bit of problems with the administration, but overall holding strong. Then we began our hunger strike.
And what are your demands? Sorry, just to get people so they know exactly what the Princeton encampment, the divestiture demands are for the university.
Yeah, so on the level of our hunger strike, we have 3 demands. The demands for the hunger strike to end. The first is that the university have a meeting with representatives from the Divest campaign to discuss disclosure and divestment. The second and third are that the university drop legal and disciplinary charges against the students that have been arrested so far. The broader Divest campaign has a goal of essentially, delinking from certain institutions, such as study abroad programs in Israel that Princeton is affiliated with. It also wants the university to build affiliations with Palestinian institutions without having those Palestinian institutions be required to affiliate with Israeli institutions. And also, starting to disclose what Princeton is actually invested in so that there can be an honest conversation around campus about divestment from companies that are invested in the occupation. So there's a financial level, and there's also an academic and cultural dimension to divestment that we're asking for.
And Rosangela, has the administration in any way, have they even recognize that you have demands? I mean, my understanding is that the hunger strike is the idea is to at the very least get the administration to sit down and begin negotiations, not necessarily to grant you all these things, but to begin negotiations. Have they even acknowledged that you have demands?
So on a public level, the administration has released emails without any mention of our demands or even our side of what's happening, no mention about the hunger strike. And we did recently get a meeting. The president agreed to a meeting, but it was extremely short in comparison to other universities. And in this meeting, some of our representative students kind of explained these demands and attempted negotiations, and there was just a lack of any type of acknowledgement that there's a genocide occurring, about our safety and well-being, and just our demands overall.
Yeah, the university has been sort of, there was a meeting with President Eisgruber with some of like the organizers of the Divest campaign, but this meeting was not productive or serious or good faith on the part of the university administration. Essentially, students went in wanting to sort of, discuss seriously our sort of divestment campaign, and President Eisgruber merely responded saying that there are certain processes and certain channels, and there needs to be consensus around campus. But what's clear actually is that the university is going against precedent historically and in the present, because at other universities there have been meetings that have actually been able to come to tangible agreements to start those processes. That has not happened here at Princeton. The negotiations have not been in good faith, and historically as well, what President Eisgruber is saying runs afoul of previous instances of divestment in Princeton's history. So for example, when it came to fossil fuel divestment or divestment from apartheid in South Africa, there wasn't actually consensus on campus. So this sort of retrospective attempt to make it seem like everyone needs to agree about divestment is just the university failing to take moral leadership and failing to care about its student well-being. Because we're hunger striking just to have a meeting, and they won't even give us a real meting.
Roseanne,
they've also been lying about multiple things.
No. Go ahead. Before you get to that, how many students are? Can you hear us? How many students are on a hunger strike right now?
13.
13. And how many folks have you had at the encampment over the course of and how long has that the encampment been going on?
Well, people flow in and they're not all there at the same time. Sometimes due to a lot of things, but we've had really great turnouts. Maybe somewhere around 200 at our largest.
Yesterday we also have had a rally outside of Nassau Hall, which attracted over like 350 people. Wow. And importantly also, like, even people who aren't at the university has tried to make a threatening environment and made students feel as if they can't be at the encampment. But we know that on the broader campus, there's much wider support. For example, when the event at Clio Hall happened and Vice President Calhoun and the university administration tried to sort of slander the students involved in the sit-in by making them seem as if they were dangerous or reckless, there were so many cultural and affinity groups on campus that came out with letters condemning the administration. And if you added up all of those affinity groups, I bet you would have, a majority of the undergraduate population represented. So, and also faculty are increasingly coming and sort of voicing their concerns about what's happening. There was a faculty letter recently calling for VP Calhoun's resignation that got over 150 signatures. And also more and more faculty are joining us in solidarity fasts as part of the hunger strike. So, the hunger strike, the number of hunger strikers has varied because we're trying to make sure we're prioritizing people's health because, the university isn't keeping us safe, so we keep us safe. And, if people need to tap out, they're welcome to do that. At our peak, I think we had 18, 19 hunger strikers, and we've diminished from there. But, the thing that's been increasing continuously is the number of solidarity fasts we have, which are people who are agreeing to do 24-hour fasts alongside the hunger strikers. And, recently faculty announced a big initiative that there will be several faculty each day also engaged in solidarity fasts.
Can you, David, talk a bit more about the faculty as well, just because it's been inspiring to see around the country at these encampments faculty members linking arms with students and joining in solidarity versus the administration's characterization of a lot of these demonstrations, whether it be Columbia, Princeton, what have you, which makes it seem like there's a lot of hate going on. But to me, it's the educated and the educators coming against this administration in solidarity.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been very, fortunate to receive so much faculty support as the student organizers. And, one feature of the encampment has been that there's been consistent faculty presence, hosting lectures, hosting workshops and teach-ins to educate students. So, the space we're building here is not just about divestment. It's also about educating people on issues around Palestine and educating them on how the issue of Palestine connects to other liberation struggles as well. So, faculty have been amazing in sort of supporting those initiatives and giving, educational lectures, giving, sort of introducing students to much broader concerns. So, the beautiful thing about the encampment and the Popular University of Gaza is that we're not just building a sort of short-term push, we're building a long-term movement. And faculty are a big part of that.
And Rosangela, how have you gotten media attention within and without the university? Are you hearing from alumni? I'm just curious as to how far your message is carrying.
Yeah, we have a really crucial communications team who has been so amazing in reaching out and kind of creating these connections with media outlets, YouTube channels, larger reporting, and then we've also had alumni reach out. Alumni have actually been to the camp and have stood in solidarity. We have alumni who are also doing the solidarity fast with us. So that's been a very important part of garnering support. The on-campus, on-campus newspapers have also been reporting on us daily.
So, David, what is the plan going forward? I mean, is there? Do you guys have a timeline, or is it? Are you determined? I imagine the school year is ending soon. What happens next, and what do you anticipate the administration doing next?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the fact that, there was a meeting on Monday, no matter how unproductive, is a sign that there's increasing pressure on the administration to seriously respond to student demands. And so we're very hopeful that as the sort of hunger strike continues and as our encampment continues, that we'll be able to put increasing pressure. And, it is, of course, true that a lot of undergraduates will be leaving soon. But, the amazing thing about this encampment is it's not just students. It's been so many people who are committed to this movement and want to keep it going long term. So we have community members who are involved, people who live in the local area. We have faculty who are involved. We have alumni who are involved. So, rest assured, even if undergraduates take a step back, there's going to be people who step up and keep this going to make sure that Princeton knows that, not just the undergraduates, but the entire world will not stand for their complicity in genocide.
What can, and either one of you can answer this question, but what can our viewers, our listeners do to support what you guys are doing?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is making sure to amplify what's happening here at Princeton. The university has consistently been trying to lie and characterize protesters and people involved in the encampment as unsafe. And we just need to make sure that people are pushing the narrative and making clear the truth that is not the case. That is actually them who is calling the police on students. It's them who's forcing students to starve themselves. The university is not going to respond, frankly, to morality. They're not going to respond to humanitarian concerns. What they are going to respond to is their bottom line and, impacts to their image. So we just need people consistently in the media, in their personal conversations on social media, shaming the university, shaming President Eisenhower, shaming VP Calhoun, shaming the Office of Public Safety, and making clear how people are not going to stand for what they're doing. And, also if people are interested, they're welcome to sort of contact all of these people. President Eisenhower's email is publicly available. His office's phone number is publicly available. So making those sort of calls, making those emails to show how strong a body of support there is for divestment and for the student movement is vital.
Rosangela, are there any social media handles or that your the Princeton University Gaza Solidarity Encampment is using at this point, where people can amplify where you guys are sending out videos or whatever it is?
Yes, we have a Princeton Divest Now Twitter and Instagram account. I can pull that up really quick unless you have it at the top of your head.
I think it's called Princeton Israeli Divest, something along those lines, but the tag is like at Princeton Divest Now.
We have that actually right there under our Chiron, so people can check that out on Instagram, but also on Twitter as well.
We will put links to both of those. Emma, do you have anything else, or?
No, I mean, just keep it up. It's awesome to see. Thank you guys for your amazing putting your bodies on the line to stop a genocide. It's inspiring to see.
Great work, guys. Stay in touch, and we will put links to all of those social media channels you have. All right, thanks very much. We're going to take a quick break. Oh, let me fix that. There you go. You know how I get with that.
The eye lines aren't quite on.
I know how you get. It's just it could help. It maybe just matches.
Sam needs to be made to look taller than Emma.
Oh yeah.
It's in the contract.
Folks, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free show, free of commercials, but you also get the fun half. And most importantly, you just support what we do here day in, day out. You watch the show a couple of times a week, or if you appreciate what we're doing, jointhemajorityreport.com. And do yourself a favor, amquickie.com. The AM Quickie is a great way to get the day's news in about 5 minutes, emailed to your email box every morning at 9 a.m. Jacob and Corey do an amazing job. Really just a incredibly helpful document. Stories that you wouldn't see otherwise, angles on stories that you do see. Check it out. Also a great way to introduce people to the show, amquickie.com. And don't forget justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, fair trade coffee, and hot chocolate.
Hot chocolate. There we go.
And you can pick up the Majority Report blend. Use the coupon code Majority. You get 10% off. Emma, ESPN.
On ESPN, we broke down the NHL and NBA conference semifinals, talked a good amount about that. We also did dive into Drake Kendrick, because what else are you going to talk about? YouTube.com/ESPN show.
And if you didn't get enough sports, Wozni Lambre of The Ringer was on Left Reckoning last night. We got deep into the Timberwolves. I mean, did about 25 minutes on the Timberwolves on my politics podcast. So it was a pretty good time. We talked about Gobert, Ant Edwards being young MJ. Oh, and we also talked about his predictions for Sleepy Joe. Or actually, that's not what we're calling him anymore. Genocide Joe and versus Don the Con. And the real great democracy we have going on in this country. So check that out, patreon.com/Left Reckoning, where we get into, actually, we should play on this show too, an Ohio State commencement address where the speaker pitched Bitcoin and the entire Ohio State Buckeyes, big stadium booed. So we'll maybe get into that in the fun half. But patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
All right, folks. Quick break. We'll be right back. Fun half. 646-257-3920 is the number.
You are in for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Anarchy. Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it to my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman!
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Cedar, what a fucking nightmare.
We bring back DJ Dinner.
Yeah, or a couple of them, just put them in rotation.
DJ Dinner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males,
psych, fuck them.
Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on! Fuck them. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday! Happy birthday to me, Jew boy!
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on! Come on! Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
Back.
We are back. Sam Cedar, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report. Oh, there we go. Okay. We were just talking about talking to two members of the Princeton University Gaza Solidarity Encampment. They are now on a hunger strike. Really impressive college students, frankly. And they have a list of demands, and really the hunger strike at this point is simply to get the administration to sit down and negotiate with them. They cited the administration claims that there are specific processes and that there needs to be a uniform consensus on the campus before they even begin in the negotiation process.